And welcome back to another Wheel of Time video. Now, y'all know my love for the Wheel of Time and the characters, my Nynaeve, Elaine, Egwene, Matt, Perrin, yes, even Rand. I'm joking, I like Rand, but he's not my favorite. But today, I'm not going to be talking about them. I'm actually going to be talking more about the background, or the world. I'm specifically going to be talking about details in the story that distract me from the main story. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't know if these details actually distracted me my first time reading the books. I'm kind of at that point in my rereading of Wheel of Time life that I no longer remember my first impressions of most things. I know how I feel now, of course, but I don't remember if how I feel now is in any way similar to how I felt the first time for a lot of details in the Wheel of Time. But like I said, I don't mean distracting in a bad way. I mean that these are details in the world building, in the background, that now, when I'm reading, they pull my interest and they make me want to try and fill them in my mind because I want to know more. Now, of course, this video is going to have spoilers. And yeah, all the way to the end of the series, like the literal end of the final book. So if you don't want to be spoiled, go away. Like the video first, maybe toss me a subscribe, but go away. The rest of you, let's get nerdy.
Let's be nerdy, babe. Let's be nerdy, let's be nerdy. Let's be nerdy, babe. Let's be nerdy, babe. Let's be nerdy, let's be nerdy, babe.
So, in no particular order, or okay, that's a lie. I'm putting the detail I'm most curious about at last, but the rest of them are in no particular order. So, the first four of these details in no particular order. Number one, Jacob Cardin's family. Jacob Cardin bores. For every month that he does not fulfill Ishi's wishes, that's kind of hard to say. Okay, for every month he doesn't do it, a member of his family dies. And we hear about at least one that I can remember off the top of my head. A cousin or like a sister or someone is taken by a murderal in the middle of her wedding. This is such an incredibly intense and dark thing that's just like happening in the background of the story that even when I'm not in the middle of the reread, I just start thinking about it every once in a while. Like the part of my brain that thinks that the world of the Wheel of Time is real, that part of my brain is just like, holy fuck, that family, they're living a horror movie. It's like Final Destination or It Follows. They are being slowly stalked by nightmares. Like the first family member that died, that would be sad and terrifying because that family member probably didn't die from natural causes. But then the next month there's another one and then another. And like I said, they're not just dying in their sleep. They're being killed and murdered by monsters. At some point, they will probably figure out that something is happening to their family because it's super specific. It's so horrifying. That poor family, that poor fictional family, they're not real. I don't know why, but it disturbs me so much. Okay, while I'm talking about characters' families, the next one on my list is Pavara. Pavara is the Red Sister. She's the Red Aes Sedai who joins the hunt for the Black Aja, and then she double bonds, or I don't know, her and Andral bond each other. And one of the details that we learned about Pavara is that her entire family was murdered by darkfriends while she was a novice. So, she understandably has a strong hatred for all darkfriends, hence her being trusted to join the hunt for the Black Aja. And okay, I know that this is just background sort of given to assure us and the other characters that she is trustworthy. But also, holy shit, her whole family murdered by darkfriends. Was it just her family? Or was it like this darkfriend uprising where they started like a murderous rampage across the town? Apparently, these darkfriends were like longtime friends of her family, so why? Why suddenly expose themselves? What was the reason? And like, I don't think we're dealing with long-term chess here, where they were killing her family in order to blah, 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 something like that would happen during the apocalypse, because I think this happened well before Ishi was free from the boar. He's free like for about 40 years every 1,000 years, and I think this happened before that. So I don't know, I suppose it's possible, but even so, even if it is, what was the purpose? Like, why? It's just background, I know, but I'm curious. And okay, it's sort of the same vein. The next on my list, Slayer. Now, first of all, of course, the merging of the two souls that make up Slayer. We've got Luke and Isam. And I think this is sort of meant to be a somewhat, like, what do you call it? Like a nebulous kind of early, very vague foreshadowing of, well, okay, obviously like Perrin and Youngbull, although not so much because Perrin is Youngbull. They're not two separate souls. But a more on point foreshadowing is that of what happens with Rand and Moradin. Like they don't become one soul, but their souls become intertwined in some way that allows for the souls to like switch bodies. I think what happened with Luke and Isam sort of lays the groundwork for that. So it isn't something that just comes out of nowhere at the end of the series. And I'm okay with the mechanics of that being kind of vague. I'm curious, of course, but it's not so much that distracts me. Although, now that I'm talking about it, what a weird experience that must have been, right? Like, you're Isam or you're Luke and you're out in the blight and you're probably having a horrible time. And then you meet, like, the other one and then suddenly you're half of a whole? Like, that would have been wild. So, okay, now that's distracting me from the original thing that I wanted to talk about that was distracting me. Okay, let me go back to my original distraction. I'm talking about the town, mainly. The town is a city of darkfriends that's been around for 2,000 years. It's in the Blight, close to Thakandar, and one would assume that Trollocs and Myrddraal make regular appearances there. What I'm distracted by is, how does this place exist? Like, it's occupied mostly by darkfriends. It's apparently a sprawling urban center. I mean, it's ramshackle, but it's not like a tiny 3-hut village. It's a town. And while I think a fair amount of the town's occupants are those Aiel that are turned against their will, not all of them are. So who would want to live there? Like, okay, darkfriends are evil, true, but they're not stupid. And okay, my understanding, based on most of the darkfriends that we meet, is most of what makes a person turn to the dark in the books is that they are looking for shortcuts, like shortcuts to their desires. They're looking for shortcuts to power or wealth or whatever. So unless you are turned against your will, or you're just a person who revels in horrors, who would want to go there? And more than that, how would this town maintain its, I don't know what to call it, its structural integrity? You know, it's darkfriends. Darkfriends are not loyal. They are not steadfast, you know? Based on what I know of darkfriends, there would be no hierarchy that you could impose that would not be constantly challenged in probably the most violent and disturbing of ways. Like, okay, I'm not saying this to question that the town exists or saying it's a bad concept. I'm saying that trying to figure it out and how it works, it pulls me in because I'm like, how is this place, like, what are they doing to make this place last? Who is going there? What is happening? I am intrigued and horrified, of course, but so intrigued. The next item on my list, probably going to reveal the most about me, and I doubt anyone else cares about this, but this, of all the ones I've mentioned thus far, they're generally things that I don't know for sure, but they probably didn't pull my focus the first time I was reading this, whatever detail it was, but this one that I'm about to mention, it absolutely did. I know this, I remember it, and I also know that every single time I'm reading, every single time we get to this point, I get distracted. Like, if I'm reading the physical book, I end up staring off into space for several minutes. If I'm listening to the audiobook, I will realize several minutes later that, oh my gosh, I went off on a train of thought and I have not been listening. I have to rewind back to the part where I stopped listening. And it's nothing. It's just a tiny beat in the story, but it fully distracts me. So, okay, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Kindle. The Kindle Terangrial that Elaine and Avienda discover. You remember this, right? They are going through the cache of Terangrial that they got from Ebudar, and they find one that looks like a little man. It's a Robert Jordan insert. It's great. But they find this one that when you channel into it, it reveals a library of books in both fiction and non-fiction categories. Every time this comes up, I just, holy fuck, get that to the Browns. I hope Elaine doesn't forget about it. Because, okay, of course, Of course, it has fiction, and we can learn about the stories from the past. It has eons of cultural and anthropological significance, and after the apocalypse, we can have a fuck ton of fun researching all of that. But it has a non-fiction section. Elaine! What the fuck? The fact that they didn't even check, like, they didn't even stop to think, let's look in the non-fiction section. Maybe it's not as useful as my imagination is thinking. Maybe it's just, biographies or something, but what if it's not? What if it's like instruction manuals for how to make certain weaves that everyone has forgotten, or like engineering manuals, like here's how you build a joke car, or hell, medical textbooks. Everyone in this age seems to have forgotten some basic medical knowledge, so that would be helpful. There's science, engineering, physics, chemistry. This knowledge might be there. The tactical advantage. This is the most important thing in the world, Elaine, and you toss it aside. Elaine Trichet, damn it. She's such a green. Her and Abby end up both. They're like, can you hit something with it? No? Okay, leave it for later. Drives me crazy every single time. Have I mentioned that I'm a brown at heart? Because, yeah, I've calmed down now. It's time for the most distracting detail in the Wheel of Time, for me, personally. And again, I mean this in the very best way possible. For me, the most distracting detail in the Wheel of Time is Varen. Specifically, Varen's backstory. Now, don't get me wrong. I think I like that it's a mystery, because I don't think that there's an actual answer or actual details about her backstory that would feel as epic as the mystery of who she is and how she comes to be. Nothing I think that could be canon would feel as epic as the mystery feels. But that doesn't mean that I don't get distracted trying to figure out the mystery. Because, whenever we get hints about it, basically what we know is that she made a mistake while presumably researching the Black Aja. And those mistakes resulted in her having to join the Black Aja or die, along with her warder, which just oh my God, what were they doing? It's so bloody intriguing. I would love to know how they got caught. What were they doing? All of that. I'm so intrigued. But even more than wanting to know the details of how she ended up in that position, I find myself wondering, okay, she's been a Black sister for 60, 70 years or so by the time the events of the book start. Okay, so according to WoTWiki, my notes here, she joined in 929 New Era, and the Eye of the World begins in 998 New Era. So some quick math. That's 69 years. 69. Nice. But okay, in that 69 years, we know that she was taking notes and researching, but she was also a Black Aja sister who would have been expected to do Black Aja things. And we know, for example, that the Black Aja were involved in killing a few sisters, an Amerlin or two, the vileness. How much of that was she a part of? We know that she had an end goal of helping the light, and I love her, and yes, yay, she is one of the best characters in the books, but the skeletons she must have in her closet, and I want to know about them. Or maybe I don't. Maybe I don't want to know, but I also, I get distracted imagining what those skeletons might be. So, okay, that's it. That's it for my most distracting details from the Wheel of Time. And like I said at the beginning, and a couple of times while recording, I don't mean this in a bad way. These all flesh out the world, and I love them. But they're just things that make me stare off into space, just wondering. How about you? What details from this series piqued your interest? What details do you find yourself trying to imagine and fill in the blanks? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like my content and you want to support me, I do have a Patreon. It's linked as always in the description below. My patrons, I love you. Thank you so much for your support. It really does mean the world to me. And with that, I will end this here. So please subscribe, leave me a comment, and I'll see you next time. Bye!